What's going on, everyone? So the Los Angeles Lakers, right, could use an Andrew Wiggins or just some upgrade in the 3-and-D wing kind of category, right? Either a guard like a Matisse Thybulle, but has that insane wingspan that can defend multiple positions, or just clear cut, Andrew Wiggins, a Herb Jones type. Problem is, Herb Jones just signed an extension. There's not very many guys on the market that kind of fit the need that the Lakers have. Andrew Wiggins, they just want too much for, and I just think it would be a bit of an overpay to do it. I've talked about it. I don't mind overpays if it's justified. I just don't know if Andrew Wiggins is justified yet. Do think you can make the argument because of Marcus Smart. I do think it's closer than it's ever been, but still, I'd kind of like to be patient in that regard, and that's if Miami would even actually trade him. But one player that I think is worth potentially taking a look at, right, and just see that I wouldn't mind giving up Connect, a first, and whatever else needed in order to make it happen, and that is Keon Ellis, right? Now, they don't want to trade Keon Ellis in a Jonathan Kuminga trade, so people might ask, like, well, why would they do that? Why would they trade him to the Lakers? Well, a couple of reasons, right? One, they don't want to trade him in the Jonathan Kuminga trade based on reports because they don't have to. Like, Brett Siegel even kind of broke this whole down in a tweet or an X, whatever you want to call it, right? Broke this whole thing down about the Phoenix Suns and the Sacramento Kings and how they're not interested in raising the price any more than what they're already willing to offer, right? That the Sacramento Kings have made Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray both, untouchable in trades for Jonathan Kuminga because they know Jonathan Kuminga is a risk. We're gonna have to pay him a bunch of money. Doesn't make any sense. Keon Ellis is making $2 million, so it doesn't affect it in any way, right? If they go and they trade for a guy in a Jonathan Kuminga, they're going to have to shed salary and do all this other stuff anyway. So they're looking at it's just not worth it for us to throw in a Keon Ellis or anything, right? But what you could potentially do is, could you maybe, if you give them an offer where it's like, hey, you're getting a first, getting Dalton Connect, kind of do the overpay route. You essentially overpay for a Keon Ellis, which could also then kind of help them go do the Jonathan Kuminga trade where it's like, hey, we're getting Jonathan Kuminga and a Dalton Connect and a first round pick all by trading Keon Ellis, where it's like, again, it doesn't make sense for us to do that. But, if we're getting kind of an overpay for Keon Ellis, then it's like, sure, let's go do that. And, again, I don't mind if a team overpays for somebody if it's justified, right? The reason I wouldn't want to do it for an Andrew Wiggins over a Keon Ellis is because Keon Ellis is just younger, right? He's a more long-term answer. And with the draft pick and all that other stuff, you're hoping to find a guy like Keon Ellis. And he might be the exact kind of guy that you need and want slotted alongside Luka Doncic. I mean, his numbers on and off the court are ridiculous for Sacramento. But on top of that, it would also kind of give you that ability if need be. I still don't think the Lakers would, but it would give you that ability if need be to now trade Austin Reeves and move off of Austin Reeves because you could slot Keon Ellis into that starting 2 role, and he's the exact guy you want slotted alongside a Luka Doncic. The kind of issue is he's only making $2.3 million, which is incredible value for what he can do, but it makes it kind of difficult to trade. I mean, Sacramento is $7.5 million under the first apron, so you could do a Dalton Connect and a first if they would do something like that. Is there anybody else that they might want to be interested in? Maybe like a Kleba or something like that. But because of that, they're gonna have to pay him, right? He's gonna be due a new contract. He's probably gonna get a pretty decent contract. He's also an unrestricted free agent. Right? So he's a guy that could just leave, right? Maybe it even take a little nudging from Keon Ellis, right? What if you had Luka, go to Luka and are like, hey, why don't you give Keon a call? Just tell him to nudge his way to the Lakers, right? That could maybe incentivize, Sacramento to kind of get a trade done where it's like, oh, and the Lakers could argue, hey, we can potentially have the cap space to just sign him outright, right? Like, whatever he wants, we could just sign him on. And you got to do it within reason. Like, I'm not giving him $30 million a year or anything like that. But, like a Rui type of contract, I think he's worth that, right? And again, he's a guy he's 20, he'll be 26, right? He's a guy that fits the timeline beautifully. He won't be 26 till January, so literally like halfway through the season. So there's still a lot of time there in that regard, January 8th. But he's already a guy that has shown the ability to play both sides of the basketball, but he's just relentless defensively. He's a guy that really, I don't think it's super likely. I want to start there. I don't think it'll be super likely. But I think if you're the Lakers, it's you at least do your due diligence. You at least throw, that potential offer out there, or be like, hey, we'll even help you get Jonathan Kuminga, right? So not only are you getting what we're getting, but you also can land Jonathan Kuminga, which you're going to have to pay him, $25 million a year or whatever. And then on top of that, you have several other guys that are going to need to get paid, and then Zach LaVine's contract and all these other things. And you already need to shed salary and do all this other stuff. So it's like, hey, maybe we can kind of mitigate some of that, right? Maybe we can kind of help each other out, and maybe you could do something for a Keon Ellis. In a perfect world, you do a Keon Ellis and a salary dump. But the problem is that, like, I don't think that they would accomplish both for you. I don't think they'd be willing to do both for you. I mean, if you could do like a Dalton Connect in a first, then you'd clear like $2 million off your books, which you could then use to sign that. But I'm talking about like a significant salary dump, right? But Keon Ellis, again, you talk about a guy 6'4", 6'5". He's got nearly a 6'9" wingspan. That's why he is so good. He's a guy that can, swarm. He's a slightly taller, Marcus Smart. Also, imagine how good Marcus Smart and Keon Ellis could be slotted alongside each other at times. And on top of that, I think Marcus Smart would be very good for Keon Ellis. I think Marcus Smart kind of helped because, again, you're talking about all defensive guy that's won a defensive player of the year, kind of working and helping and shaping and molding, and just having him day to day working with Marcus Smart, I think could just do wonders for Keon Ellis as well. And he's still young enough to where there is that growth, there is that potential, there is that upside, and you could have a Luka and Keon backcourt for the next, 8 years plus. If a Dude Thero actually becomes something, right, then all of a sudden you could have a Dude Thero as like your 3 or your 4. Right? All of a sudden you have these athletes. If Bronny emerges and be that guy, you could always just move Keon to the 3 and Bronny to the point, right? Like, so all of a sudden you have this athleticism, this defense, the switchability, right? All these things that could potentially be something for a team like the Lakers. And, if DeAndre Ayton works out, right, that's great. Now you have DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, and Keon Ellis. And like I said, it makes it, if you were to sign and trade Austin Reeves, or if you just decided like, hey, it's probably best for us to trade Austin Reeves, or if you have any inclination that he might leave, or if he wants like $50 million, you're like, hey, we don't want to pay him. You can now trade him if need be comfortably. Again, I'm not saying that they will or they should or anything like that, but if push comes to shove, you now can do that without going like, okay, well, who are we going to add? It's like, well, you got Keon Ellis, who can be the exact thing you need, slot alongside Luka. And I mean, if you were to land Keon Ellis, you're better off starting him, if we're being honest, right? You go Luka and Keon Ellis. Problem is, I don't think the Lakers would do that, but I would. If I had my way, I'd go, Keon Ellis with like a Vando or Marcus Smart, just really add that defense alongside Luka, Ayton, and LeBron. And, I think we could do some damage, make some noise throughout the season, and especially come playoff time. But this is a guy that, already has shown that he can be a legit 3-and-D style player, a guy that can have the impact on both sides of the basketball. And that's the key, right? Not adding in a one-dimensional guy. Again, I think it's unlikely, but so is Luka, right? So you never know. And again, if you're willing to kind of overpay, or what Sacramento deems would be an overpay, it might take a little nudging from Ellis, but you never know, right? Stranger things have happened. But you look at last year, he played 80 of 82 games too. That's another thing. He played last year. There were some questions the previous years, but he played 80 games, started in 28 of them, 24.4 minutes per game, on 5.8 attempts. He shot just under 49%, 48.9% total from 3-point range. On 4 attempts, he shot 43.3%. Imagine what he could do alongside Luka Doncic and LeBron James, setting him up all game long. The quality of looks that he would get would be ridiculous, right? So 43.3% from 3-point range, 2-point range. on just under 2 attempts, 1.8 attempts. He shot 61.5%. EFG of 63.9%. Free throw shooting on 85% on 1.1 attempts. Rebounds, 2.7, so just under 3 rebounds per game. 1.5 assists, 1.5 steals, and nearly a full block at 0.8. He averaged 8.3 points per game. If you look at his per 36 doesn't tell you everything. Kind of gives you an idea of like what he could potentially be, but he'd be 12.3 points, 4 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 2.2 steals, and 1.5 blocks per game. This guy is exactly what this Lakers team needs. Again, if you can pull that off, he's a guy that I'd be willing to overpay for. He's a guy that I think the Lakers, if they can pull something off, maybe or even throw in a pick swap or something like that, right? Because my thing is like he's a guy you could have for the next 8+ years. Again, if like Andrew Wiggins, I don't really like. It's like how many more years do you have of Andrew Wiggins? Where Keon, I mean, he's a guy minimum you'd have for 8 years, maybe, right? Maybe even 10. It's hard to say no to that. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.